All right, my name's Roger Spur. I'm sort of on a quest here to try to get alternative research allowed in this country. And I see everything as a process, and academia doesn't necessarily see it that way. But I see everything as a process, and it led me to the understanding that the reason that academia is doing what they're doing is a process created by unaccountability. They have no accountability to anybody for anything. They do what they want, and they ignore what they want, and they're not accountable. Now, the truth is that they are accountable. They have fiduciary duties, and their fiduciary duties are to the best interest of their students. They're being paid to teach their students what is real, and in order for them to know what is real, they have to investigate things that are put in front of them that contradict the things that they are teaching. And they don't do that. They ignore them, and they denigrate people that come up with these things. Now, I'm going to just give you some examples, and I'm specifically pointing out the USA, and I guess England is quite bad at this too. Russia is academically free, actually. They're very, very good over there, and as a matter of fact, I've worked with the Russians, and they're very nice people, and they're very open people, and they're very understanding, and they look into reality. And in this country, academia does not have any really reality is not even in the equations, not even a consideration. Now, in the United States, and I call these people like Yale and Harvard, and that's all my opinion, but it's based on some pretty solid evidence. Yale, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, they're all modern day book burners. And a book burner is somebody that will not allow you to read something. They just won't allow you to do it. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're book burners. Now, God and creation, you study that today in academia, you're destroyed, career destroyed. They'll laugh at you. They will consider you a fool. And you will be denigrated. Your life will spiral downward if that's what you decide to do and you're in academia. It's just not allowed, really, as far as I can determine. Unless you go to like a religious institution or something where all the crazy people are. Now, aliens and UFOs, that's just, you're way out there in left field and you're done. And that is our ancient story, and that's validity. I don't think people came out of the caves and started banging on rocks, making pyramids and all these fabulously exquisite stonework. They didn't do that. And it's being ignored, totally ignored. And if you started to, they just don't allow that. They burn those books. Living universe and the planets. There's a lot of evidence to show that the planets and blue holes and the sinkholes and all of this stuff, the methane gas emissions, the structure, the cellular structure of the Earth, it's being totally ignored, and it is a disaster impending. I'm going to tell you right now. I've been studying sinkholes and the methane emissions, and it's not good. And this is not being totally ignored, but it's being sequestered by the intellectuals, and they won't let that out. I contacted somebody from MIT about the methane emissions, and they were very interested until they found out I was in the alternative research area, and I associated it possibly with the chemical factory explosion in China, and that was it. It went dark. So don't mingle things, and that was the end of that. But things are mingled. If you don't associate something to something else, you never get to the end. If you say to yourself, "Oh, I have to investigate this," and nothing that it is associated to, then you're not really even a researcher. You're just, I don't know what you're doing. If you don't try to build bridges and links and try to understand what, I study mud fossils. I'm going to give you an example. Mud fossils, they don't accept them. Yale says that they're just rocks. I have CAT scans, I have DNA, I have all of that stuff. They're absolutely 100% certainly proven, and they will not examine them. They refuse to look at them because it does not agree to what they're teaching. Now, that is a fiduciary failure. That requires a lawsuit. Now, that's a book burner in the most extreme case. And that's Yale. That's Yale. That's Harvard. That's Johns Hopkins. And that was my professor at Johns Hopkins. He absolutely refuses to look, and he was my professor, Stephen Salzberg. He told me that all of my research was wrong. Within 8 minutes of receiving it, he composed and sent back a very critical, arrogant response that it must have been contaminated, it couldn't be this, it would have been this, it should have been that, and within 8 minutes, he scrutinized our report, our DNA report, and a video about the CAT scans. I mean, he's very, very good at what he does. Anyway, you know, so you can do that all in 8 minutes. I mean, I can't imagine how good your research is. Now, I study mud fossils, and I guarantee you there's no question they're true. Like I said, DNA, CAT scans, absolutely refuse. Not one person will look at this, and they won't respond to me. So what does that leave me? Legal. That puts me in a legal arena, and that's what we plan to do. So here's the solution. All institutions should be considered in a learning status. That means they should be paying attention to research, and that means that somebody should have a ability to supervise these institutions. That if they just ignore physical specimens, physical. Now, I'm not talking about theoretical, oh, this might have been this, might have been that. No, I'm talking about, here's a bone. I have DNA analysis, I have CAT scans, and it all's conclusive and it's positive, 100% certain. Will you please look at it? And if they say no, which is the case, then I am going to sue them, because they are not fulfilling their fiduciary duties. And it's not me I'm going to sue them. I'm not going to make any money. This is going to be the students. The students should do a class action lawsuit because they're not being provided with the tools that they are trying to buy. And the worst part of this is, if they don't agree to what the professor says, then they fail. And they can't, then it creates a terrible situation in their life. And mostly it's paying these guys to teach them is putting them in a terrible situation as it is. And in addition to that, they're teaching them something that isn't even true, and they don't even care enough to look at something that's presented to them. I can't even get this to them to accept this, to look at it. I can't even walk in and say, and I've said, I'll bring this, I'll hand carry this. Can I present this to you? Can I present my information? And guess what? No responses. So what do? No responses. It's like I'm not even alive to these people. And believe me, I'm not. So this is the only solution, is a legal solution, and I want lawyers to contact me, because this should be class action lawsuits drawn up as soon as we can possibly do this, and to start moving these people towards a situation that's tolerable for everybody. They're not performing what they're supposed to be doing. This is education. You can't be educated from not looking and ignoring. That's not education. I mean, ignorance is bliss, but it's just ignorance. So you can't ignore stuff. It's just not allowed. We're not going to allow it. And at mudfossils.com, you will find the source of my frustration. You'll see all my evidence that is absolutely certain what I'm saying is a fact, and it's happened, and everybody knows this in alternative research. And there's a ton of stuff out there that's extremely valid. So that's how we're going to handle it. Contact me, lawyers, please. You should have some interest in this. This is all over. This is a society. We want to get some, and it's not just education. It's political too. So let's hold these people accountable. There's fiduciary duties that have to be upheld, and they're being totally ignored. All right. Thank you.